All right, what's going on, guys? Man, I hope you guys are having a wonderful Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon or Monday, whenever you're watching. It doesn't really matter. It is October 22nd, 2023, and college football, guys, is in full swing. Yesterday, the slate of games was amazing. We had craziness all over college football, and that's what we're going to be here to talk about, man, because it's officially bye week. So we're not gonna be talking. Well, we're gonna be talking LSU, but we're not gonna be talking about games, breaking down stuff like that. LSU got a huge win last night against Army, as everybody expected it to be. Most impressive thing, the defense. Man, the defense pitched a shutout. If you would ask me 2 months ago if that was even possible, I would have said no. But we're starting to see it, man. You're improving every single week since the Ole Miss game. You know, you had that historically terrible performance. You come back, you beat Missouri, you play well in the second half of that game defensively, right? And then you go and you face Auburn and you dominate defensively again. And then you have this performance where you get a shutout. And I know what y'all are saying. It's Army, right? And who cares? But listen, Army is still running a complicated offense that basically Ole Miss runs the same thing, just with better players, right? I mean, so the fact that Army didn't bust a big run for a touchdown or anything like that, I mean that's improvement. You saw the defensive line getting push up front, getting off blocks, stuffing these run lanes, which is what we've been asking for this whole time. Can't stress enough how important it is that Pete Jenkins came in and fixed this defensive line, because they have made improvements every single week, and every single week you see them getting better. Now, that being said, the thing that we're talking about today that's in the title is LSU. Do they have a realistic shot at making the playoffs? Do they control their own destiny? That's a tough question, because I don't think they do. I think there's a possibility that the SEC could get left out of the playoff in general, no matter who wins. So, let's talk about it. So right now, your AP poll, or whatever poll you like to look at, right? It's Georgia 1, Michigan 2, Ohio State 3, Florida State, Washington. All those good undefeated teams, right? You have Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Washington, Florida State, Oklahoma, all sitting undefeated right now. You had North Carolina, who lost yesterday. You had Oregon, who lost last week to Washington. Washington struggled last night. So, that being said, what kind of scenario has to happen for LSU to get into this playoff, right? As a two-loss team, losing to Florida State, who's an undefeated team currently, and losing to an Ole Miss team that you actually need to lose again. And LSU's resume would look spotty at best, right? That Alabama win, if you were to get a win against Alabama, it's not very impressive, if that makes any sense. In the sense of it, yes, it's impressive you beat Alabama. But in the grand scheme of things, there's teams with better wins than that, than going on the road and beating Alabama, right? You just beat Texas, right? What if Texas has one loss? And they beat Alabama too. So you have that scenario you throw in there. And then you would obviously have a win over Georgia, who you're hoping would be undefeated going into that SEC championship game. If they're not undefeated, it gets a little dicey even if you win that game. But LSU, right? You have Michigan, Ohio State winner. All right, that team's probably going to be undefeated. You have Florida State, who has a cupcake schedule the rest of the season. They're probably going to be undefeated. So right there, I'm looking at my 1 and 2 seeds, right? Florida State, ACC champ, and whoever wins the Big Ten out of Ohio State, Michigan, I believe. Whoever wins that game is going to win the Big Ten. Then you have the Washington dynamic. I personally don't think Washington is going to go undefeated, right? I think they're going to drop a game to somebody somewhere, right? And in the regular season. And I think that Oregon and Washington are going to play each other again, and I think Oregon's going to get the best of them. So then you have you're really struggling there, because if the teams that LSU would be going up against, right? Let's say Washington runs the table and goes undefeated in the regular season and loses to Oregon, all right? Oregon has one loss, Washington has one loss, and then let's say the same scenario happens in the Big 12 where Oklahoma and Texas play each other again, and Texas gets the better of Oklahoma, and you have a one-loss Oklahoma and a one-loss Texas team, plus a one-loss Michigan team whose only loss would be to Ohio State. Florida State undefeated, you would have Ohio State undefeated or Michigan undefeated. Whoever won that game, I don't see a scenario where a two-loss team jumps any of those teams. I can't picture it in my mind. So for me, LSU still needs help. Like if they were to run the table, yes, that's great. SEC champions, they need help to get into the playoff. Like that's not a certain thing that they get in as an SEC champ, and it's not a certain thing that any SEC team, like, could you imagine the last 14 playoff and not including an SEC team? That is just wild to think about. But it's a realistic possibility at this point in time at the season. Now, obviously, these things always play themselves out. We talk about these scenarios every year about how chaos could ensue and who would you pick over who, and it doesn't matter because it's going to work itself out, hopefully. And if it doesn't, well, the committee's going to have a problem. And then they're going to be this 12-team playoff thing all over again. We're going to be talking about this, how we needed the 12-team playoff. But 4 teams is perfect. Like, this year is an example where 4 teams, like, each one of these teams are fighting for their lives and having to hope other teams lose. Like, every weekend is a playoff game, and that is what is amazing about college football. So, like I said, LSU obviously has to focus on being who they are and do their job and hold up their end of the bargain, and where the chips fall is where they fall, right? But at this point in time, the way things are shaking out and the way I would think they would end up, it's hard for me to see LSU getting in as a SEC championship above all these one-loss teams. There's only 4 spots, guys, and I got a good feeling that the Big Ten champ and Florida State are going to go undefeated this year. So, I mean, that's 2 spots right there taken up, and then now you have to separate the one-loss teams, and then I don't know. I just don't know. I just don't know if they can put a 2-loss SEC team above some of these 1-loss teams, especially if they have conference championships. Like, you think Oregon, if they're a conference champion, or Washington, if they're a 1-loss conference championship, is not getting in over LSU? Because they are. I hate to break it. All them people that are biased against the Pac-12, that conference is loaded. If you only have 1 loss coming out of that conference as a champion, you've earned it. Same with the Big 12. If Oklahoma and Texas play each other again, Oklahoma obviously wins. They're undefeated. If Texas wins, they had beat Oklahoma. I mean, I don't know, man. It's just tough for me to see right now a world where LSU can get in with 2 losses. We need chaos, man. That's all I can say. You need a scenario like you did in 2007 where everybody loses and the chips just fall perfectly aligned, and then you get in. But as that being said, LSU did this to themselves by losing that Ole Miss game. They'd be firmly in the driver's seat as a 1-loss SEC champion. But when you throw them that second loss, people kind of look at you funny. And LSU still got a lot of work to do, man. They still play on the road in Tuscaloosa. They still play Texas A&M. They still play Florida. And they would play in the SEC championship game if they were to make it that far. So it's definitely not an easy road for LSU, the way they finish this thing out. But to say they control their own destiny would not be true, because they do not control their own destiny. They need several factors that would have to come into play. You need teams to start losing, man. And it doesn't look like that's happening anytime soon with some of these teams. But this is college football, man, and this is the sport we all love. Crazy things happen every single weekend. We almost saw Florida State, Washington, Oklahoma all lose yesterday, and Texas, throw them in there. You already saw North Carolina lose yesterday. Like, this is a real possibility that these teams can lose, and that's what LSU needs to happen. So if you're an LSU fan out there and you want LSU to make the playoffs, first of all, you need to be cheering for them to win out. Second of all, you need to be cheering for some of these teams to lose. And that's about as all I got for you guys today, man. That's a short and sweet to the point. Talking college football playoffs already in October. It breaks my heart, but that's what the world we live in today is all about, that college football playoff. And hopefully we get some chaos and we will see LSU there. And I will see you guys later on this week. And we're going to be talking about something. I haven't picked a topic yet for the bye week, but we're going to be breaking it down. Probably something to do with recruiting. But we're going to be breaking it down, letting y'all know. Get in on it now. Make sure, if you're not already, dang it, man, subscribe to the channel. It's completely free. Like, it costs you nothing. It does everything for me. It does everything for you because you get the content that we all love. From a fan's perspective, I'm not a media guy. I'm not a former player. I'm not none of that. I'm just one of y'all, and I have opinions, and you can either like them or not like them. Either way, subscribe to the channel. Argue with me. It is what it is. Everybody's got an opinion. Might as well let it be heard. Leave a comment. Let me know how it goes, man. I will see you guys later on this week. And obviously, man, we're getting ready to go to Tuscaloosa. We're going to be there. I'm super excited because we're going to beat Alabama's ass in a couple weeks.